The morning sun cast long shadows across the university's computer science building as Sarah Martinez walked through the corridors with her laptop bag slung over her shoulder. She had been working as a junior developer at TechFlow Solutions for 6 months now, and today marked her first presentation to the senior development team. Her proposal was simple but ambitious: migrate their entire web infrastructure from expensive proprietary servers to Apache HTTP server, an open-source alternative that could save the company thousands of dollars annually. Sarah had spent weeks preparing her presentation, running performance tests, and creating detailed cost-benefit analyses. She knew the technology inside and out, having worked with Apache servers during her computer science degree and in several personal projects. The statistics were compelling. Apache powered nearly 40% of all websites globally, was completely free to use, and offered the same reliability as their current expensive solution. As she entered the conference room, she noticed the familiar faces of the senior development team. There was Marcus, the lead architect who had been with the company for 8 years, Jennifer, the security specialist known for her meticulous attention to detail, and David, the project manager who always seemed skeptical of new ideas. At the head of the table sat Robert Chen, the chief technology officer, whose approval would be crucial for any major infrastructure changes. Sarah set up her laptop and began her presentation with confidence. She explained how Apache's modular architecture would give them more flexibility, how its extensive documentation and community support would reduce troubleshooting time, and how the cost savings could be redirected toward hiring additional developers or investing in new technologies. Her slides were clean and professional, her arguments well-structured and backed by solid data. However, as she spoke, she noticed something troubling. Marcus was checking his phone repeatedly, barely glancing at her slides. Jennifer seemed more interested in her coffee than the presentation. David was openly rolling his eyes at some of her points, particularly when she mentioned the open-source nature of Apache. The room felt cold and dismissive despite her thorough preparation. When Sarah finished her presentation and asked for questions, the response was immediate and brutal. Marcus was the first to speak, his voice dripping with condescension. "Look, Sarah, I appreciate the effort you've put into this, but Apache is just amateur hour. We're a serious company with serious clients. We can't risk our reputation on some free software that college kids use for their hobby projects." Jennifer nodded in agreement, adding, "Security is my primary concern. How can we trust something that anyone can modify? Our current proprietary solution comes with guaranteed support and liability coverage. If something goes wrong with Apache, who do we call? Some random volunteer on a forum?" David leaned back in his chair, smirking slightly. "I've seen this before with new developers. They come in with all these idealistic ideas about open-source solutions, thinking they can revolutionize everything overnight. The reality is that enterprise-level operations require enterprise-level solutions. Apache might work fine for a personal blog, but we're dealing with millions of dollars in transactions daily." The dismissal stung, but what came next was even worse. Robert Chen, who had remained silent throughout the presentation, finally spoke up. His tone was not just dismissive but openly mocking. "Sarah, I have to be honest with you. When I saw Apache on the agenda, I thought you were going to suggest we hire Native American shamans to bless our servers." He chuckled at his own joke, and unfortunately several others in the room joined in the laughter. Sarah felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment and anger. The joke was not just dismissive of her technical proposal but also culturally insensitive. She had expected professional criticism, perhaps some legitimate concerns about implementation or support, but she had not anticipated mockery. The laughter felt like a physical blow, and for a moment she struggled to maintain her composure. As the laughter died down, Sarah gathered her materials slowly, trying to process what had just happened. Her carefully researched proposal had been dismissed without serious consideration, reduced to a joke that played on stereotypes and ignorance. She had worked late nights and weekends to prepare this presentation, believing that good ideas and solid data would speak for themselves. The reality was far more disappointing. The meeting continued with other agenda items, but Sarah barely heard the discussions that followed. She sat quietly, her laptop closed, feeling simultaneously angry and defeated. The men around the table continued their discussions about quarterly targets and upcoming projects as if nothing had happened, as if they had not just crushed a bow, The rest of the workday passed in a blur for Sarah. She returned to her small cubicle in the corner of the open office space, trying to focus on her regular tasks, but finding her mind constantly drifting back to the humiliating experience in the conference room. The mocking laughter echoed in her ears, and Robert Chen's dismissive joke played on repeat in her memory. She had always prided herself on her technical skills and her ability to present complex ideas clearly, but today had shaken her confidence completely. As colleagues passed by her desk throughout the day, some offered sympathetic glances while others seemed to avoid eye contact altogether. Word traveled fast in the office, and Sarah could sense that news of her failed presentation had already spread. During lunch, she overheard two senior developers discussing the morning meeting, with one of them saying, "Did you hear about the Apache thing? Poor girl had no idea what she was getting into." The comments, though meant to be sympathetic, only made Sarah feel worse. She did not want to be seen as naive or unprepared. She knew her proposal had merit, and she knew Apache was a legitimate, powerful solution used by major corporations worldwide. Companies like Netflix, Airbnb, and even NASA relied on Apache servers for critical operations. The dismissal she had received was based on prejudice and ignorance, not on technical merit. That evening, Sarah sat in her small apartment, staring at her laptop screen. She had been researching Apache implementations at major companies, building an even stronger case for her proposal. Part of her wanted to march back into Robert Chen's office the next morning, with overwhelming evidence of Apache's enterprise-level capabilities. Another part of her wondered if it was worth the effort. Maybe she should just accept that this company was not ready for change, that the old boys club mentality was too entrenched to overcome. As she scrolled through technical documentation and case studies, Sarah's eyes began to feel heavy. She had been working non-stop since returning home, trying to channel her frustration into productive research. Without realizing it, she dozed off at her desk, her head resting on her folded arms next to the keyboard. The next morning, Sarah woke up with a stiff neck and the imprint of her keyboard on her cheek. She had slept poorly, her dreams filled with replays of the previous day's humiliation. As she prepared for work, she made a decision. She would not let yesterday's experience define her or discourage her from pursuing innovative solutions. However, she would be more strategic about how she presented her ideas in the future. Arriving at the office, Sarah noticed that the atmosphere seemed different. There was an unusual buzz of activity, with people huddled around computers and speaking in hushed, urgent tones. She approached her teammate Jake, who was frantically typing at his workstation. "What's going on?" Sarah asked, setting down her coffee. Jake looked up with a stressed expression. "The main server crashed around midnight. We've been trying to get it back online, but there's some kind of cascading failure. The proprietary system is throwing errors we've never seen before, and the vendor's support team won't be available until this afternoon because of the time zone difference." Sarah felt a mixture of concern and bitter irony. The expensive, enterprise-level solution that had been praised just yesterday was now failing when the company needed it most. She watched as senior developers scrambled to find solutions, calling emergency support numbers and searching through limited documentation. "How long has it been down?" Sarah asked. "Nearly 8 hours now," Jake replied, wiping sweat from his forehead. "We're losing thousands of dollars every hour the site is offline." Robert is furious. He's been on the phone with the vendor all morning, threatening to terminate the contract. Sarah observed the chaos quietly, noting how different this situation would be with an open-source solution like Apache. The extensive community support, the freely available documentation, and the ability to modify the code directly would have provided multiple paths to resolution. Instead, the team was helplessly waiting for a vendor's support team to wake up on the other side of the world. Throughout the morning, the situation grew worse. The vendor's initial response was disappointing, suggesting a complete system restore that would take another 6 hours and result in the loss of recent data. The stress in the office was palpable, with managers pacing nervously and developers working frantically to find alternative solutions. During her lunch break, Sarah made a decision that would change everything. She had been thinking about her grandmother's stories, about resilience and standing up for what you believe in despite opposition. Her grandmother had always told her that sometimes you have to show people the truth rather than just tell them about it. Sarah spent her lunch hour preparing a detailed emergency response plan that utilized Apache servers as a temporary solution. She knew she was taking a significant risk by even suggesting it, especially after yesterday's humiliation. But the current crisis provided a unique opportunity to demonstrate Apache's capabilities under pressure. As she worked on her proposal, Sarah unconsciously rolled up her sleeves, revealing something that had been hidden beneath her professional attire. On her forearm was a beautifully detailed tattoo, a design that told a story of heritage, resilience, and technical innovation. It was not just decorative art, but a symbol of identity that connected her to something much larger than herself. The tattoo on Sarah's forearm was a masterpiece of intricate detail and cultural significance. It depicted a soaring eagle with wings spread wide, its feathers rendered in stunning black and gray shading. Beneath the eagle, geometric patterns formed a traditional Native American design that seemed to flow like water around her arm. Interwoven with these traditional elements were subtle modern touches, tiny circuit board patterns that looked like ancient symbols from a distance, and binary code that spelled out words in the Apache language. This was not just a tattoo. It was a declaration of identity. Sarah Martinez was not just another junior developer in a tech company. She was a member of the Chiricahua Apache Nation, descended from a long line of innovators and problem solvers who had adapted to challenges for generations. Her great-grandfather had been a code talker during World War II, using his native language to transmit crucial military communications that the enemy could never decode. Her grandmother had been one of the first Native American women to earn an engineering degree, breaking barriers in the 1960s, when both her gender and ethnicity made her an outsider in the field. The irony of yesterday's meeting was not lost on Sarah. Robert Chen's mocking joke about Apache shamans had unknowingly targeted someone whose very identity was intertwined with the Apache name. But more than that, his dismissal of Apache software had inadvertently dismissed a technology that shared its name with a people known for their strategic thinking, adaptability, and resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. As Sarah finished preparing her emergency response proposal, she thought about the history behind the Apache HTTP server's name. The software had been named Apache, partly as a play on words. It was Apache server built from patches and improvements to existing code, but also as a tribute to the Native American Apache tribes, known for their superior tactics and endurance. The founders of the Apache Software Foundation had chosen the name to honor the spirit of collaboration and resilience that characterized both the Apache people and the open-source community. Sarah returned from lunch to find the office in even greater chaos. The vendor's proposed solution had failed during implementation, causing additional complications. The main website had now been down for over 10 hours, and competitors were already capitalizing on the situation by offering special promotions to lure away customers. The financial losses were mounting rapidly, and several major clients had called to express their concerns about service reliability. Robert Chen looked haggard as he paced between workstations, his earlier confidence replaced by visible stress. Marcus and Jennifer sat at their computers looking defeated, having exhausted all their usual troubleshooting methods. David was on his third cup of coffee, his hands shaking slightly as he fielded increasingly angry calls from management. Sarah took a deep breath and approached the group of senior developers. She had printed out her emergency response proposal and held it carefully in her hands. Her sleeves were still rolled up from working through lunch, making her tattoo clearly visible to anyone who looked closely. "Excuse me," Sarah said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I know yesterday's presentation didn't go well, but I have a potential solution for our current crisis." Marcus looked up from his computer, irritation flashing across his face. "Sarah, we're dealing with a real emergency here. This isn't the time for theoretical discussions about open-source software." "That's exactly why this is the right time," Sarah replied, stepping closer to the group. "While we're waiting for vendor support that may or may not resolve our issues, I can have an Apache server configuration ready in 2 hours. It won't solve the underlying problems with our main system, but it can get our website back online while we work on permanent solutions." Jennifer shook her head dismissively. "We've been through this. Apache isn't suitable for our enterprise-level needs." Besides, implementing any new server configuration during a crisis would be incredibly risky. With respect, Jennifer, our current enterprise-level solution has been down for 10 hours, Sarah responded. At this point, the risk of doing nothing might be greater than the risk of trying something new. And Apache isn't some untested hobby project. It's running mission-critical systems for companies much larger than ours. Robert Chen, who had been listening from across the room, walked over to join the conversation. His face showed the strain of the day's events, and his earlier arrogance had been replaced by desperate frustration. Sarah, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but we can't afford to make this situation worse with amateur solutions. As he spoke, his eyes fell on Sarah's exposed forearm and the intricate tattoo that adorned it. For a moment, his words faltered as he took in the detailed artwork and began to recognize the cultural symbols embedded within it. The eagle, the geometric patterns, the traditional designs. They were unmistakably Native American, specifically Apache. The realization hit Robert like a physical blow. Yesterday's joke about Apache shamans suddenly took on a completely different meaning. He was not just looking at a junior developer with an idea. He was looking at someone whose very identity was connected to the name he had mocked. The irony was almost overwhelming. He had dismissed Apache software while unknowingly insulting someone of Apache heritage. Sarah noticed his expression change as his gaze lingered on her tattoo. She saw the recognition dawn in his eyes, followed quickly by what appeared to be embarrassment and perhaps a hint of shame. She decided to address the elephant in the room directly. Mr. Chen, I notice you're looking at my tattoo, Sarah said calmly. Yes, I am Apache. Chiricahua Apache, to be specific. Yesterday, when you joked about Apache shamans, you were unknowingly making light of my heritage as well as dismissing a technology that happens to share its name with my people. The conference room fell silent. Marcus, Jennifer, and David all turned to look at the tattoo they had somehow missed before, their expressions ranging from surprise to awkward embarrassment. The weight of yesterday's casual racism hung heavy in the air, made all the more uncomfortable by the current crisis that seemed to validate Sarah's earlier proposal. Sarah continued, her voice gaining strength. But right now my heritage isn't what matters. What matters is that we have a solution that can get our website back online while our expensive enterprise system remains broken. The question is whether we're willing to put aside our preconceptions and try something that might actually work. The silence in the room stretched uncomfortably as Robert Chen processed the full implications of what had just been revealed. His face had gone pale, and Sarah could see him mentally replaying yesterday's meeting, his casual joke now taking on a much more serious and offensive meaning. The other team members looked equally uncomfortable, shifting in their seats as they realized they had been witnesses to what was essentially workplace discrimination. Sarah watched their reactions carefully, but she was not interested in making them feel guilty. She had a more important goal: getting their website back online and proving that good ideas should be judged on their merit, not on the preconceptions of those hearing them. She decided to focus on the technical solution rather than dwelling on yesterday's insults. Look, Sarah said, setting her proposal on the table. I know this is an uncomfortable situation, but our customers don't care about office politics or hurt feelings. They care about being able to access our services. I've spent my lunch break putting together a detailed plan for implementing a temporary Apache-based solution that can handle our current traffic load while we work on fixing the main system. Robert struggled to find his voice. When he finally spoke, his tone was completely different from the arrogant dismissal of the previous day. Sarah, I owe you an apology. Yesterday's comment was completely inappropriate, and I should never have dismissed your proposal without proper consideration. The fact that you're offering to help us now, after what happened yesterday, shows more professionalism than I displayed. Sarah nodded acknowledgement of his apology, but kept the focus on the technical challenge. Apologies are appreciated, but they won't get our website back online. What will you need to see to feel confident about implementing my solution? Marcus, who had been notably quiet, finally spoke up. What kind of timeline are we looking at? And what resources would you need? Sarah opened her proposal and spread the pages across the conference table. I can have a basic Apache configuration running in 2 hours. It will need 3 virtual machines, which we can spin up in our existing cloud infrastructure. The configuration will handle our current traffic patterns and include basic security measures. Once it's stable, we can gradually migrate more services while working on the permanent fix for our main system. Jennifer, the security specialist, leaned forward to examine the documents. Despite her earlier skepticism, she found herself impressed by the thoroughness of Sarah's planning. You've included load balancing configurations, SSL certificate management, and intrusion detection. This is actually quite comprehensive for something you put together during a lunch break. I've been working with Apache servers since college, Sarah explained, and I spent considerable time last night researching enterprise implementations after yesterday's meeting. Companies like Netflix use Apache-based solutions to serve millions of concurrent users. Our traffic volume is significant for us, but it's well within Apache's proven capabilities. David, who had been making notes while reviewing the proposal, looked up with surprise. These performance benchmarks, they're actually better than what we're getting from our current system, even when it's working properly. Sarah smiled slightly. Apache's lightweight architecture and efficient memory management often outperform heavier commercial solutions. That's why so many major corporations have migrated to open-source web servers over the past decade. Robert was studying the cost analysis section of the proposal. According to these calculations, we could save approximately $60,000 annually by switching to Apache permanently. Is this accurate? That's a conservative estimate, Sarah replied. It only includes direct licensing costs. When you factor in reduced support costs, faster development cycles, and improved scalability, the savings could be much higher. Plus, the money we save could be invested in additional development resources or new technologies. As the team reviewed Sarah's proposal, the atmosphere in the room began to shift. The technical merits of her solution were becoming impossible to ignore, especially given the current crisis. Every hour the website remained offline was costing the company money and credibility with clients. Jake appeared in the doorway, looking even more stressed than before. Robert, I hate to interrupt, but the vendor just called back. They're saying the earliest they can have our system fully operational is tomorrow afternoon, and that's if their proposed solution works on the first try. If there are complications, we could be looking at another full day of downtime. The financial implications hit everyone immediately. 2 full days of website downtime would result in losses that could reach into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, not to mention the long-term damage to client relationships and company reputation. Robert looked at Sarah with new respect and urgency. How quickly can you start implementing your solution? Give me access to our cloud infrastructure and 2 people to help with configuration, and I can begin immediately, Sarah responded. We could have basic functionality restored within 2 hours, with full services available by end of business today. Marcus stood up, his earlier resistance completely abandoned. What do you need from me? Jennifer, I'll need you to review my security configurations and suggest any additional measures you think are necessary, Sarah said, already moving into project management mode. Marcus, you can help me set up the virtual machines and implement the load balancing. David, we'll need you to coordinate with customer service and prepare communications for clients once we're back online. As the team sprang into action, Sarah felt a surge of satisfaction. This was how technology decisions should be made, based on evidence, capabilities, and results rather than prejudices and assumptions. Her Apache heritage had given her strength to persevere through yesterday's humiliation, but her technical skills and thorough preparation were what would solve today's crisis. Robert approached her as the others began their tasks. Sarah, before we start, I want you to know that after this crisis is resolved, I'd like to discuss a more permanent role for you in our infrastructure planning. Your proposal yesterday was excellent, and I should have recognized that immediately. Sarah nodded, appreciating the gesture but remaining focused on the task at hand. Right now, let's concentrate on getting our services back online. We can discuss future opportunities once we've proven that good ideas work regardless of where they come from. The next 2 hours transformed the office atmosphere completely. Where there had been panic and frustration, there was now focused energy and collaborative problem-solving. Sarah found herself at the center of a whirlwind of activity, coordinating between team members, making technical decisions, and troubleshooting configuration issues as they arose. Marcus, who had been one of her harshest critics the day before, proved to be an excellent collaborator. His 8 years of experience with the company's infrastructure provided valuable insights into traffic patterns and system requirements. As they worked together to configure the virtual machines, he began to understand the elegance of Apache's modular architecture. I have to admit, Marcus said as he watched Sarah efficiently navigate through configuration files. This is much more straightforward than our current system. When we need to make changes to our proprietary setup, we have to submit tickets and wait for vendor approval. With this, we can modify anything we need in real time. Sarah smiled as she fine-tuned the load balancing parameters. That's one of the biggest advantages of open-source solutions. You're not locked into someone else's vision of how your system should work. You can adapt it to fit your exact needs. Jennifer had initially approached the security review with skepticism, expecting to find glaring vulnerabilities in the open-source configuration. Instead, she discovered that Sarah had implemented security measures that were actually more robust than their current system. The transparent nature of open-source code meant that security vulnerabilities were quickly identified and patched by the global community, often faster than proprietary vendors could respond to issues. "Sarah, this intrusion detection system is impressive," Jennifer called out from her workstation. "The rule sets are more current than what we're using now, and the logging capabilities are far superior. We'll actually have better visibility into potential security threats." As they worked, Sarah shared stories about her background and how it had influenced her approach to technology. She told them about her great-grandfather, who had used the Apache language as an unbreakable code during World War II, and how that legacy of using communication and intelligence to solve complex problems had inspired her career in technology. "The Apache people were always innovators," Sarah explained while configuring SSL certificates. When faced with new challenges, they adapted their tactics and found creative solutions. That's the same spirit that drives the open-source community. People from all over the world collaborate to solve problems and share their solutions freely. David, who had been coordinating communications with management and customers, was amazed by the speed of progress. Their proprietary system vendors typically required days or weeks to implement similar changes, but Sarah's team was accomplishing everything in hours. "The customer service team is getting excited," David reported. "They've been fielding angry calls all morning, but now they can tell clients we'll be back online this afternoon. Some of our major accounts have even expressed interest in the improved performance capabilities you've described." As the afternoon progressed, Sarah's Apache-based solution began to take shape. The first virtual machine came online at 2:15 p.m., successfully serving basic web pages. By 3:30 p.m., they had full load balancing operational with 2 additional servers. The performance monitoring showed response times that were significantly better than their previous system, even under stress testing conditions. Robert had been monitoring their progress from his office, taking calls from increasingly nervous executives and board members. When Sarah knocked on his door at 4 p.m., he looked up with hopeful anticipation. "We're ready for the full cutover," Sarah announced. "All systems are tested and performing optimally. We can redirect traffic from the failed servers to the Apache configuration immediately." Robert's relief was visible. "What do you need from me?" "Just authorization to update the DNS records and redirect traffic. The transition should be seamless from the customer perspective," Sarah replied. As they made the final configuration changes, the entire team gathered around the monitoring displays. Sarah initiated the traffic redirect, and they watched as the Apache servers smoothly took over the load. Response times remained stable, error rates dropped to 0, and the dreaded downtime that had plagued them for nearly 12 hours finally ended. The first sign of success came from the customer service department. Phone calls shifted from angry complaints to positive feedback about improved website speed. The monitoring dashboard showed clean green indicators across all systems, with performance metrics that exceeded their previous baseline by 20%. Robert addressed the team as they watched the successful implementation. "I want to formally apologize to everyone, but especially to Sarah, for yesterday's meeting. My comments were inappropriate and reflected poorly on the leadership of this company. More importantly, they prevented us from considering a solution that clearly has significant merit." Sarah appreciated the public apology, but she was more interested in discussing the future implications of their success. The question now is whether this is just a temporary fix or whether we're serious about reevaluating our technology choices based on performance and capability rather than marketing materials and vendor relationships. Marcus, who had been watching the performance metrics with growing amazement, spoke up. "Looking at these numbers, it would be hard to justify going back to our old system even after it's repaired. We're seeing better performance, lower latency, and more flexibility than we've ever had." Jennifer nodded in agreement. The security monitoring capabilities alone are worth the migration. We have real-time threat detection that our previous system couldn't match. David was already thinking about the business implications. The cost savings could fund 2 additional developer positions. We could accelerate several projects that have been delayed due to budget constraints. As the day wound down, Sarah reflected on the dramatic change in circumstances. 24 hours earlier, she had been humiliated and dismissed. Now she was being consulted on major infrastructure decisions and treated as a valuable team member whose opinions mattered. The irony was not lost on any of them. The software that shared its name with Sarah's heritage had proven itself under pressure, demonstrating the same resilience and adaptability that had characterized the Apache people for generations. What started as a mockery had become a triumph, both for the technology and for the principles of evaluating ideas based on merit rather than prejudice. 3 weeks after the successful Apache implementation, the transformation at TechFlow Solutions was remarkable. The temporary fix had become the permanent solution, with the old proprietary system relegated to backup status. Sarah found herself in a completely different position within the company, consulted on major decisions and respected for her technical expertise and innovative thinking. The performance improvements had exceeded everyone's expectations. Website response times had improved by 35%, server costs had dropped by 40%, and the development team could implement changes in hours instead of weeks. Customer satisfaction scores reached an all-time high, with several major clients specifically commenting on the improved speed and reliability of the company's services. Sarah's role had evolved naturally from junior developer to infrastructure specialist, with Robert formally recognizing her contributions through a promotion and salary increase. But more importantly for Sarah, the respect she had earned opened doors for implementing other innovative solutions she had been considering. During a morning team meeting, Sarah presented her latest proposal, migrating their entire development workflow to open-source tools. She had prepared another comprehensive analysis, showing how tools like Git, Jenkins, and Docker could streamline their development process while reducing licensing costs by over $100,000 annually. This time, the reception was completely different. Marcus leaned forward with interest as Sarah explained the benefits of containerization. Jennifer asked detailed questions about security implications, showing genuine engagement rather than skeptical dismissal. David took careful notes about the potential time savings and improved project management capabilities. Robert listened intently throughout the presentation, occasionally asking clarifying questions that demonstrated he was taking the proposal seriously. When Sarah finished, he didn't hesitate to express his support. "Sarah, your track record speaks for itself. The Apache implementation has been one of our most successful infrastructure projects ever. If you believe these additional changes will provide similar benefits, you have my full authorization to develop an implementation plan." The meeting that had once been a source of humiliation had transformed into a collaborative planning session. Sarah felt a deep sense of satisfaction as she watched her colleagues engage seriously with her ideas, evaluating them based on technical merit rather than preconceived notions. After the meeting, Jennifer approached Sarah privately. "I owe you an apology for my attitude 3 weeks ago. I let my assumptions about open-source software cloud my judgment about your proposal. I've learned more about infrastructure security in the past 3 weeks than I had in the previous 3 years." Marcus was equally forthcoming about his changed perspective. "I've been in this industry long enough to know that the best solutions often come from unexpected places. Your Apache proposal taught me to listen more carefully to ideas that challenge my assumptions. But perhaps the most significant change was in Robert Chen himself. The executive who had once made casual jokes about Apache shamans had become an advocate for diverse perspectives and innovative thinking. He instituted new policies requiring thorough technical evaluation of all proposals before any decisions were made, regardless of who presented them. During a company-wide meeting, Robert addressed the entire staff about the lessons learned from the Apache implementation. He spoke about the importance of evaluating ideas based on merit, the value of diverse perspectives in problem-solving, and the company's commitment to fostering an inclusive environment where all employees felt comfortable sharing their insights. 3 weeks ago, we almost missed out on a solution that transformed our infrastructure and saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars, Robert told the assembled employees. That happened because we let our preconceptions override our professional judgment. We cannot afford to make that mistake again. Sarah watched from the audience, feeling proud of the changes her persistence had brought about. But she was also thinking about the bigger picture. The success at TechFlow Solutions was just one example of what could happen when diverse voices were heard and respected in the technology industry. Later that week, Sarah received an unexpected phone call. Dr. Patricia Gonzalez, a professor at the local university and director of the Native American STEM initiative, had heard about Sarah's success story through professional networks. The initiative was working to increase Native American representation in technology fields and was looking for mentors and speakers who could inspire young students. Sarah, your story is exactly what our students need to hear, Dr. Gonzalez explained during their phone conversation. You've demonstrated that heritage and identity can be sources of strength in technology careers, not obstacles to overcome. Would you be willing to speak at our upcoming conference? Sarah was honored by the invitation and immediately accepted. She had often felt isolated as one of the few Native Americans in her field. But the recent experience had shown her the power of combining cultural heritage with technical expertise. If her story could inspire other young Native Americans to pursue technology careers, she wanted to share it. The conference was held on a Saturday at the university's engineering building. Sarah arrived early, nervous about public speaking but excited about the opportunity to connect with students who shared similar backgrounds and challenges. The audience consisted of about 50 high school and college students, along with their parents and teachers. As Sarah took the stage, she looked out at the young faces in the audience and saw reflections of her own journey. Some looked confident and eager, while others seemed uncertain about their place in the technology world. She began by showing a slide with the Apache HTTP server logo, alongside traditional Apache symbols, immediately capturing their attention with the visual connection between her heritage and her profession. 3 weeks ago, my boss made a joke about Apache shamans when I proposed using Apache web servers at my company, Sarah began. He had no idea that he was talking to someone of Apache heritage, and he certainly didn't expect that the amateur technology I was proposing would end up saving the company and transforming our entire infrastructure. She told her story chronologically, from the initial humiliation through the crisis that provided an opportunity to prove her ideas, to the eventual success and recognition that followed. But more importantly, she talked about the deeper lessons her experience had taught her about persistence, cultural identity, and the power of good ideas to overcome prejudice. Your heritage is not something to hide or overcome, Sarah told the students. It's a source of strength and perspective that makes you uniquely valuable in the technology industry. The same innovative thinking and problem-solving abilities that helped our ancestors adapt and survive can help you excel in modern technology careers. The response from the students was overwhelming. During the question and answer session, Sarah fielded inquiries ranging from technical career advice to questions about dealing with discrimination in predominantly white workplaces. One young woman, barely 18 years old, stood up to share her own experience. I'm starting computer science next semester, but my family doesn't understand why I want to work with technology instead of staying closer to our traditional ways, the student said. How do you balance honoring your heritage with succeeding in a modern career? Sarah's response drew from her own journey of discovery. Technology isn't separate from our traditions. It's a continuation of them. Our ancestors were always innovators, always finding new ways to solve problems and help their communities. Today's programmers and engineers are doing the same thing, just with different tools. After the conference, several students approached Sarah individually. Many asked for her contact information, hoping to stay in touch as they pursued their own technology careers. Dr. Gonzalez pulled Sarah aside to discuss the possibility of establishing a mentorship program that would connect Native American students with professionals in the technology industry. Your presentation was exactly what these students needed to hear, Dr. Gonzalez said. Too often, they feel like they have to choose between their cultural identity and their career aspirations. You've shown them that these two things can actually strengthen each other. Over the following months, Sarah's influence continued to grow. Word of her success story spread through professional networks, leading to speaking invitations at technology conferences and diversity symposiums. She found herself becoming an advocate not just for open-source technologies, but for inclusive practices in the technology industry as a whole. At TechFlow Solutions, the changes initiated by Sarah's Apache implementation had ripple effects throughout the organization. The company's success with open-source technologies led to recognition in industry publications, attracting new clients who were specifically interested in working with innovative, cost-effective solutions. The money saved through Sarah's initiatives was invested in expanding the development team and pursuing new projects that had previously been considered too expensive. Robert Chen, transformed by his experience with unconscious bias, became a vocal advocate for diversity and inclusion in the technology sector. He instituted new hiring practices designed to attract candidates from underrepresented backgrounds and established partnerships with organizations like Dr. Gonzalez's Native American STEM initiative to create internship opportunities for students. The company's culture shifted in subtle but significant ways. Team meetings became more collaborative, with junior developers encouraged to share ideas and challenge existing practices. The phrase, "that's how we've always done it," disappeared from conversations, replaced by genuine curiosity about better approaches and innovative solutions. Sarah's mentorship program grew beyond her initial expectations. She connected with young Native Americans across the country who were pursuing technology careers, offering guidance, encouragement, and practical advice about navigating challenges in the industry. Several of her mentees went on to secure internships at major technology companies, often citing Sarah's story as inspiration during interviews. One particularly memorable success story involved Tommy Begay, a Navajo college student who had been struggling with confidence in his computer science program. After connecting with Sarah, he found the courage to propose an innovative mobile application that would help preserve and teach Native American languages. His project attracted attention from venture capitalists and ultimately led to the founding of a successful startup company. A year after the Apache incident, Sarah received an unexpected invitation. The Apache Software Foundation, the organization that maintained the Apache HTTP server and other open-source projects, invited her to speak at their annual conference about diversity and inclusion in the open-source community. Standing before an audience of hundreds of software developers and technology leaders, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. She spoke about the interconnectedness of cultural heritage and technological innovation, about the importance of diverse perspectives in creating better solutions, and about the responsibility of the technology community to ensure that everyone had opportunities to contribute. The Apache web server was named partly as a tribute to the resilience and strategic thinking of the Apache people, Sarah told the audience. But it was also built through collaboration, through the sharing of ideas and solutions across cultural and geographic boundaries. That's the true spirit of open source, the belief that the best solutions come from bringing together diverse minds working toward common goals. Her presentation received a standing ovation, but more importantly, it sparked conversations throughout the conference about practical ways to increase diversity and inclusion in open source projects. Several major technology companies announced new initiatives to support underrepresented communities in technology, directly inspired by Sarah's story and advocacy. Back at TechFlow Solutions, Sarah's latest project involved developing an artificial intelligence system for predictive maintenance in manufacturing facilities. The complexity of the project required innovative approaches and creative problem-solving, exactly the kind of challenge that energized her. As she worked late one evening, fine-tuning machine learning algorithms, she thought about her grandmother's stories about problem-solving and adaptation. Her phone buzzed with a text message from Tommy Begay, now CEO of his language preservation startup. "Just wanted you to know that our app reached 10,000 downloads today. None of this would have happened without your encouragement. Thank you for showing me that our heritage makes us stronger, not different." Sarah smiled as she read the message. The ripple effects of standing up for her ideas that day had extended far beyond anything she could have imagined. What started as a humiliating rejection of a technical proposal had become a catalyst for personal growth, professional success, and positive change in the lives of others. As she returned to her code, Sarah noticed her reflection in the computer monitor. Her Apache tattoo was visible beneath her rolled-up sleeve, a permanent reminder of where she came from and the strength she carried within her. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new opportunities to innovate, to mentor, and to continue building bridges between her heritage and her profession. The story that began with laughter and dismissal had transformed into something much larger, a testament to the power of persistence, the value of diverse perspectives, and the extraordinary things that can happen when people are judged by the quality of their ideas rather than the preconceptions of those around them. In the end, Sarah had not just implemented a web server, she had helped change an entire company's approach to innovation and inclusion, creating opportunities for others who might otherwise have been overlooked or dismissed. The Apache spirit of resilience and strategic adaptation lived on, not just in the stories of the past, but in the technologies and communities being built for the future.